Welcome to Rise and Realign Conversations for the Sensitive Soul. I'm Melissa, and this space is for those of us who feel deeply, love fiercely, and sense the world in ways that are hard to explain but impossible to ignore. Here, we honor your sensitivity as a strength, not something to fix. So today, I want to talk about something that affects all of us, but many sensitive people notice especially quickly, and that is the health of the environments we live in. Our nervous systems are constantly interacting with the world around us, right? The air, the water, the food we eat, and the spaces that we move throughout each day. And when you have a more finely tuned central nervous system, you may feel those influences much more quickly and more intensely. So, this episode is part of Podcasthon. It's a global initiative where podcasters highlight nonprofits that they feel are making a positive difference. And this year, I have chosen to participate and spotlight an organization called Green America. So, Podcasthon started in 2023 with about 300 French speaking podcasters who came together around a simple idea: podcasting for good. In 2024, more than 400 podcasters participated, and it's expanding, obviously, worldwide. And the dream is to make Podcasthon a global tradition, uniting thousands of podcasters in dozens of languages every year, not to just talk about podcasting for good, right? But to turn it into a real movement that uses stories, technology, and community to inspire listeners to care, to act, and to make a difference, one episode at a time. And believe me, the sensitive women that I have the honor of supporting, I hear about the different places that they are giving from their very kind and generous hearts, right? Because again, what happens in the world to others, you know, sensitive individuals feel more deeply about it. Again, there's this depth of caring that comes from having, um, you know, well, the many aspects of having this trait, but obviously empathy is a big part of it, and that depth of processing, right? So today, um, the Podcasthon looks like you and me spending a few minutes together thinking about our nervous systems, our environments, and how organizations like Green America are working behind the scenes to create healthier conditions for us all. So, as always, I always start with the research around the high sensitivity trait, right? We've known it originally was 15 to 20. Now it's more looking like 20 to 30% of the population has a more finely tuned nervous system, right? And the scientific term is sensory processing sensitivity. And so, those of us who have this trait might notice subtle things more quickly, like a smell in a room, a change in someone's tone of voice, the difference between fluorescent lights and natural daylight. And again, we are each so unique. So, one of us may have stronger activation in certain areas and not others, right? And I certainly have noticed that, having been raised in a family of highly sensitive individuals and then also having 3 children with high sensitivity, and just how different, each of these things can affect us. But sensitivity is absolutely biological. It's normal and yet invisible. And so it's definitely not about being too emotional or too dramatic, which many people may view somebody who's highly sensitive as having, and even that person who has this high sensitivity trait may view themselves that way. But it's really about having a nervous system that takes in more information from the environment. And again, that's all ways, okay? And then that depth of processing is what has us processing it so much more deeply. So for sensitive individuals, environmental inputs like noise, light, chemicals, temperature, and even the emotional atmosphere of a space can register in the body very fast. And I speak from experience. It can absolutely be overwhelming at times. And again, it really depends too on what age and stage of life we're in. Um, and our level of awareness, right? Because if we didn't even understand this about ourselves, we might not be able to notice where it is. But it's definitely something that can be overwhelming at times, but it is also a gift once we understand it, right? And I call it, unwrapping the gift, because this early warning system tells us when something in our surroundings is off. Also, on the internal space as well. But let's, you know, um, talk about how mental health is, it's not just thoughts and feelings, right? It's not just what's going on in our head. It's also our nervous systems, and how they're being shaped all the time by the environments we're living in. And, these are just a few examples. I mean, air quality, right? Like some people live in places where there's air pollution, right? People live in environments where there's mold in their home, right? Chemicals in the air that can affect breathing, energy levels, brain fog, right? Like, and again, knowing that highly sensitive individuals are affected by these more quickly is what's so important from my perspective. So, chemicals and products, right? So, our cleaning products, the pesticides that they are, that they or even ourselves may be using in our own yards, right? And even the fragrances that we use inside. These can trigger headaches, irritability, fatigue, right? And especially in sensitive people. And I remember, on my own journey of awakening through all of this, being like, okay, air purifiers. Okay, no more of those wall, fragrances that are just producing chemicals, right? Like it really, for me, became about cleaning up, what I did expose myself to, which again, I'm just highlighting how important it is for us as sensitive individuals to understand these things. So then there's noise, constant background noise, where sudden loud sounds activate that stress response. Silence or gentle soundscapes help the system settle. And I definitely have found many different ways to get more into the calming of the nervous system. Because believe me, even though my environment is very much supportive of who I am, like if I'm driving and I hear a Harley Davidson motorcycle that is super loud, but I didn't see it coming, right? Like that startles me. It's just like, oh, okay, and I can appreciate that, that's helpful so that they can be seen and safe while we're all traveling, on the freeway together. But it still startles me. Um, okay, so other places like nature, right? So being around trees, plants, natural light, and water tends to lower stress hormones and support nervous system regulation. And again, this is not new information, but I think that we've come through this period of time, right? where we just became so conditioned to do everything inside. And again, I know this is not all people everywhere. So um, I'm just talking about what I've witnessed and am aware of, here in America. But if you have a sensitive nervous system, then you most likely feel these differences immediately, right? And you may not even realize it if, again, you're in that chronic stress overload already. But definitely it can contribute to, you feeling dysregulated, tired, on edge, right? Lighting, it's the flickering, the lux. There's so many things for us to be aware of that we don't necessarily always know. But when we are talking about environmental health, right, we're not only talking about polar bears and ice caps or, abstract climate graphs. We're also talking about what your nervous system has to process every single day. And this is, one of the reasons why I really felt called to speak about Green America. So, this is where they come in, right? Green America harnesses economic power, meaning the power of consumers, investors, businesses, and the marketplace to create a more socially just and environmentally sustainable society. I mean, that's pretty powerful just to even acknowledge, right? Like that's a big undertaking. And their vision is a world where all people have enough, where communities are healthy and safe, and where the abundance of the earth is preserved for future generations. I mean, for me, just reading their vision, I just feel like there's got to be highly sensitive individuals behind this, because again, to have that depth of caring, right? To care about all people having enough, right? Where communities are healthy and safe. I mean, it's just to me beautiful. And I've been on their subscriber list. I don't really know how long, but I've definitely been made aware of the things that maybe large corporations are doing that don't support our environment, right? And the longevity of it. And of course, the health of each of us. And they raise awareness around, which banks, right? Like are supporting fossil fuels and, just they're giving the information and the options, and they're really building a resource for more people to understand that there are options, right? Your voice matters, your contribution matters, right? So, Green America focuses on shifting business practices toward healthier operations for people and the planet. And so they do a lot of education, helping, everyday people, all of us, understand where their money goes and how their choices can support or challenge corporate practices that affect environmental health. And again, some of the different things that I recall reading, I was just like, wow, I didn't know that. And I'm so grateful that they're doing this work because it's changing, right? Like some of these um big corporations and organizations that they are again bringing this information to are shifting and starting to say, okay, we need to get on this, right? Or we want to, right? They're really holding the bar to seeing the changes happening. And I'm really grateful for that. Um, Actually, I just received an email a couple days ago from Green America that inspired me to make a $20 donation. And that they were talking about something called climate victory gardens. And it's a really simple idea. When people grow food using regenerative practices like organic gardening and healthy soil care, that soil can actually help capture carbon from the atmosphere. Like, super cool, right? Green America has already helped register more than 41,000 of these gardens. I mean, that's huge, right? This is from tens of thousands of small garden plots, from backyards to community gardens, quietly helping the planet breathe a little easier. It's a reminder that even small actions like growing herbs in a window box or vegetables in a backyard garden can contribute to healthier environmental systems. I mean, I love this, and I think it's so important. You know, we all deserve to breathe a little easier, to breathe in more fresh, clean air, right? Like, we deserve to have our vitality um supported, right? And sensitive people, are the ones that often are the early indicators when something in our environment is out of balance, right? So again, Green America and what they're doing is helping all of us, but it's absolutely helping and supporting those of us who have high sensitivity because we feel the effects. We're affected by these different business practices and toxins, in many different ways. Um, we feel these negative effects, right? Of the toxins, the noise, the chaotic spaces, all way faster than others. That's where this overstimulation comes in for highly sensitive individuals because we're taking in like 5 times more input than people who don't have this trait. And the beautiful part is that, there's also research that shows that we take in the positive effects, you know, more quickly as well. So again, changing, our air so it's cleaner, moving into quieter spaces, right? Being in contact with nature, right? And then being around individuals, whether it's, colleagues, whether it's family, friends, whoever it is, being around others who are also, thinking in more, holistic ways, right? Like how we can support each other, how we can connect and support with our environment, right? Like how we can, again, work together. We're all on this planet together. So, you know, coming to a common um, place, right? Of unity, of care, of, you know, um, support for the highest and greatest good for us all, right? So, what I always come back to is, having this high sensitivity trait for me is not, pointing to it in a pathologizing way, right? But often I will, first meet sensitive women because they've had a history of anxiety. They've had a history of depression. They've had a history, right, of traumatic experiences that haven't yet been processed because, again, deeply processing our experiences, our environment, right? So, but in the sense of our bodies being able to alert us when the environment is not aligned with human health, right? Like this is where organizations like Green America work. They are cleaning up supply chains, they're supporting regenerative agriculture, right? They're advocating and pushing for less toxic products. And they're not only helping the planet in a broad sense, right? They're also helping real human nervous systems, especially the most highly sensitive ones. so that we can live in conditions that feel safer, calmer, and more coherent. So, environmental care is not separate from mental health. It's one of the foundations of nervous system care. Because again, the women that I see who, again, anxiety may be that presenting issue, right? Or um, experiencing depressive episodes, right? Like, we can't just look at this as mental health. We have to include the wholeness of who individuals are, right? And how the environment is influencing each of us, right? I mean, there's so many factors that go into this, but really, I'm so grateful for organizations like Green America, and you can access them at greenamerica.org, and I'll also put it in the show notes because, again, any contribution, is helping in enormous ways. And they do have lovely, it's a garden plaque. That's what I donated and gifted to a very dear friend who is so, you know, caring with his plants, and how he treats Mother Earth, and it's just it touched my heart. So well, I'm curious if over the next few days, if you would feel, the invitation to pay attention to how your body responds in different environments. You know, maybe let's pause together now to take a break and breathe love. And maybe you can do more of these moments just in the different environments that you're in throughout the day. Okay, so let's take a break and breathe in through the nose. One or a second inhale, two helps. And then exhaling out your mouth. And again, deep inhale through your nose. And do a second inhale. And then nice long exhale out your mouth. And at least one more. And then exhaling out your mouth. Remember, this is connecting to you, your breath, your body, this moment. And it invites the opportunity for you to notice what happens in your nervous system. If you're in a busy, noisy, artificial setting like a store or a hectic street or a space with harsh lighting and chemicals. And then notice what happens when you're in a space with more natural elements, right? Like sunlight, daylight, softer light, right? Plants, trees, fresh air, water, or simply even just more quiet. And you don't need to analyze it, right? Just being curious, just noticing. And if you're curious about Green America, their programs, or the climate victory gardens I mentioned, I invite you to go learn more about them at greenamerica.org. And if you feel called to support their work in whatever way feels right for you, whether that's a donation, changing a buying habit, or planting something in your own bit of soil, right? Like, that is beautiful. But again, there's no expectations. This is raising awareness so that, you can keep coming back to you and being aware of what's influencing you, what is impacting your nervous system, your vitality. So, thank you for being part of Podcasthon and for caring about both the inner and outer environments that shape our lives. And as a reminder, we are here together to rise, reclaim, remember. Where the heart leads, the body remembers, and the soul awakens. And so before we close, I invite you to again return to your breath, to your body, to what feels true for you right now. There's nothing you need to do, just notice what's here. And as always, you are invited to join the Rise and Realign Lunar Letter that you can access on my website, realignwithmelissa.com, or inquire there as well about some of my other offerings. But take good care of you. Much love and light.